it's that moment when it says you're live. Like, okay, here we go. Good morning. So usually I'm here at about 10, usually. So before going live on YouTube, I was doing live sessions in a Facebook group, my Pilates Facebook group, during the first round of the lockdown, and I used to go live on Sunday mornings. So, because Facebook can be a bit of get a bit obsessed with all the stuff and the scrolling, I guess bring it on here. Yeah, and just do YouTube. Just get on with it and get on with your day. So today, what are we doing? This morning, we're going to spend about 20 minutes working on our back muscles. We say working on our back muscles, it just throws it off. It means you're going to lie on your front. So if you're lying on your back, getting ready to do some Pilates, you're actually going to lie on the front, and that's where we're going to start. Now, if you have got more of an arch in your lower back, if you've got quite a curve going on in your lower back, and I don't mean curve coming on up here, I mean in your lumbar spine, opposite your navel. If you've got like a hyperlordotic curve and you tend to have a tailbone that goes out quite a bit, then you might find lying on your front can sometimes be a bit ouchy in your lower back, because it makes you go into this tilt even more, and it makes you compress in your lower back. It can feel a bit pinchy. So if it feels a bit like that for you, if you hate lying on your front doing stuff like this, you're like, oh, really? Hurts my back. Then get yourself a rolled up towel, or my favourite, a blanket. Always got a blanket. You can roll it up so it's really thick, but so you can actually notice it, and you put it underneath your lower belly. So when you're lying on your front, you use that as feedback. Okay, you use it as feedback. So when you're lying on your front and you can feel you've got something underneath your lower belly, you use that as feedback for your pelvic bone to press into. Can you see the difference? So you're not lying down on your front with your bum sticking up in the air. You're actually lying down and you're touching the pubic bone, the lower part of your belly, on the blanket or on your towel. Top tip for the day, yay! Which means then, when you are doing work on your back muscles, bit of science geeky for Nestle before we get into the exercise. This is from Thomas Meyer's book, Anatomy Trains. It's the science bit, the geeky bit. And you can see that if there's anything going along on that back chain of fascia, that's the blue stuff. It's not really blue when they cut you open. Honest, she just does that so you can just see what it looks like. Then you're going to have issues in your back. So if you have an arch, more of an arch lumbar spine, you're going to get a little tightness around here in your lower back, which could have issues up here in the neck. And you'll listen to me talking about the neck during the next half an hour, because if your neck is tight, it can switch off your lower back. And if your calves are tight, it can also affect your hamstrings, which can affect your lower back. So your foot position is important as well, and all that malarkey. I mean, there's other parts of the back as well, the fascia of the back. We're going into the arms, because we're doing some arm stuff as well. When you're talking about the back, so we're talking about up here, your back of your shoulders, the back of the neck, going down into the trapezius, going down into your lats, also into the quadratus lumborum, great side bending muscle. Okay, enough talk. So on your front, and we're going to start with your hands there. So hands are underneath your forehead. I feel like I'm miles away, so I'm going to come forward a little bit so you can see me better there. So when you're lying on your front with your hands under your forehead, just take a moment to notice your how you're resting, how you're lying there. Can you notice your legs? Do they feel equal? Or do you have a tendency or a preference for one leg more than the other? So when you're lying on your front, do you tend to feel really more aware of your right leg or your left leg? Do you feel heavier on one leg more than the other? Does one leg feel longer? So I know I've had more awareness in my right side than my left side. More aware of my right hip than my left hip. You're not trying to change it at all. You're just bringing awareness to it. And then bring that awareness to your breathing for a moment. So if you find it tricky to breathe with your face down, then put your face over onto one side and breathe into your lower belly. So notice where the space is between your navel and your pubic bone, and breathe into that space. And then you imagine that you've got a little balloon in your lower back, and you're trying to blow up the balloon with your breath, creating space in your lower back as you breathe in. And you just breathe out normally. Okay, so we're going to start nice and easy by keeping your left hand underneath your head, and your right arm is going to come out to the side and it's bent. Let me move over a little bit. That's better. Lovely. So you've got a 90-degree angle with your arms. So have your elbow about in line with your armpit. If it's too high up, you'll hike up your shoulder, and it will just feel like you're doing too much shoulder stuff and not too much back stuff. And you're just going to lift and lower your elbow. Nice and easy, just lifting and lowering your elbow. And then just lift and lower your hand. And then we're going to do the whole arm. So just pause for a moment, because as you lift the whole arm, and I want you to think about your shoulder blade on that side. Let your shoulder blade drop back towards your spine as you lift your arm. So your shoulder blade, quite a big area of bone on your back here, resting on your rib cage. Can you allow yourself to think about the middle to lower shoulder blade? So as you lift your arm, can you allow that to slide towards your spine? So if I was in the room with you, my hand would be on the corner or the edge of your shoulder blade, and there's a space between that and your spine. And I'd be encouraging your shoulder blade to kiss your spine. Gently, it's not like a smacker, it's a gentle kiss, a gentle, soft, smooth movement. And then rest. Let's do the other side. Now I'm going to turn around. You stay where you are so you can see that I'm up to. Okay. So 90 degrees. And you lift and lower the elbow. This is just a gentle way of trying to get your brain to notice your arm, your humerus, your elbow, but also to be aware of your shoulder and where the arm is moving from. And then lift and lower your hand, and you'll notice as you do that, the elbow stays down, and the top of the arm, the humerus, tends to roll back, hopefully. And then do the whole thing. Hand, elbow together, and your shoulder blade drops back towards your spine. So your head can be facing your hand, or you can have your face down. Okay. So you're going to bend both elbows now. Your chin's going to stay tucked down. Now, if you don't want to lift your head, you can keep a towel or a blanket. Yay for the blanket! Underneath your forehead. You're keeping the hands down and the elbows down. Just allow the head to lift away and then come back down. So as you do the simple lifting, think about your chest bone. So your chest bone is here, it's your sternum, so where all your ribs meet. The top of your chest bone starts just below your collarbone in the middle there, and it comes all the way down here. It's quite big. If you had your thumb at the top bit and your little finger on the bottom bit, that's how long my chest bone is. A long bone, very important. So how much of your chest bone comes off the floor as you lift? You might want to start with just noticing the top bit of your chest bone lifting and then coming back down. So you're very soft around the face and the jaw. So no tension, you're not grabbing at the face or the jaw or your shoulders. You're noticing your chest bone lifting and lowering. And then as you feel a little bit more confident and more aware of what you're doing, you might be able to feel that you can take more of your chest bone off the floor. Ooh, yeah, look, I can take more off the floor and then I can put it back down again. So that picture I was showing you earlier of the back fascia, so what you're doing with your neck is you're trying not to feel that you're coming up higher by lifting your chin. So you don't want to be there with your chin. You're not trying to tighten up the back of your neck or shorten the back of your neck. The back of the neck wants to stay long. So the chin stays down towards your throat. And then we're going to add the legs. Whoa. Okay. So you're going to come down and you're going to let one leg lift, bring it down, and let the other leg lift. And then change again. One leg lifts, it comes back down, and then you change legs. You do a couple more on each side, but allow the leg to feel if it's being lengthened. So if I was in the room with you, I'm holding onto your foot, and I'm gently pulling, gently tractioning your leg away from your pelvis. Okay, so let's add those together. So let's just let both legs lift off the floor and come back down. So this is where your blanket or your towel come in handy. So if you start to feel that you're arching in your back, if you're getting a bit of a pinching going on in your lower back, put your rolled up towel underneath your lower belly. So the front of your pelvis, your pubic bone, just touches the blanket or the towel. And then you can lift your legs and come back down. So much easier. Lovely. So again, feel those legs are being pulled away from you. And then we're going to let the legs relax, come back up with the upper body, come back down and let the legs lift. Let the legs come down and let the upper body lift. So like a little seesaw movement. Upper body comes up, upper body comes down, legs lift, legs lower. And don't forget how the front of the body feels. Are you staying in contact with the floor, with your pubic bone, the lower part of your belly? Is your chest bone coming off the mat? Don't worry if you're not coming up too high, because I'm starting to come up a bit higher now, so I can straighten my arms. But if you feel that's too much for you because your shoulders are coming up to here, then stay on the elbows, yes? Stay down on the elbows and think more about what's happening in your chest bone. You know, you see like the full swan dive with the hands up here and lifting of the legs all the way up as well, and lifting up the arms. We're not really going there today. This is more about feeling how it's working, where you're working from, and the connections that you're feeling. So we're not going crazy. Plenty of time to go crazy. And today is not going crazy day. Okay. So you're going to bring your hands back underneath your head. You're going to come back to alternating the leg lifts. One leg comes up, it comes down, and then you change legs. Just hanging out here, lifting and lowering the legs. Lovely. Last one on the other side. And then we're going to come back to the arms, and we're going to lengthen them out in front of us. And you're going to allow one arm to lift, and then bring it down, and then change sides. Whee! So I've got my arms out on a slight diagonal. Because I find that when I have my arms out in front of me straight, I tend to hike my shoulders up towards my ears, and I tend to feel like I'm moving like that. Really, I want to be down there. I want this space here in my shoulder. So I tend to take my arm out on a little bit of a diagonal. Because if I'm reaching for the corners of the room, so my chin's staying down. Now the head can stay on the floor, or you can lift your face off the floor. But your awareness is in your shoulder blade. Not so much the arm, but when you lift one of your arms, that shoulder blade, can you allow yourself to feel that shoulder blade is coming towards your spine on a diagonal, as if it's going across to the opposite hip. So when you lift your left arm, the left shoulder blade is going towards the left side of your pelvis. And when you lift your right arm, it's going towards the right side of your pelvis. Magic. And rest. Whew. Because we're going to put that together now. So we're going to lift up the right arm and the left leg. Okay, so because we're lifting up both, the tendency is to try and feel that you want to get up higher. So check that you're not lifting the front of your chin. So your back of your neck stays along. So chin stays down. And if you're tending to feel a bit pinchy in the back, keep something underneath the front of your body to touch with your pubic bone. So you're not arching your back. Okay, here we go. So right arm and left leg. So breathe in as you come up. Breathe out as you come down. And then change sides. So notice that shoulder blade going across to your spine as if it's trying to touch the back of your leg. One more on each side, and then we'll rest, yes. Okay. So what we're going to do now is push yourself back gently into child's pose. Sometimes it's not easy to get back into child's pose. When I'm on your front, feel a bit like, ooh, come up. Sort yourself out. T-shirt, trousers, everything. So I quite like using the blanket or a towel in child's pose, because if your head doesn't quite reach the floor, your neck and your upper body don't get to relax very much. So you can rest your head on the blanket. Or if it feels ouchy in your knees, you can put your blanket around here, underneath, between the crease here. Ah, that's nice as well. And let your tailbone feel as if it's pressing away from you, and your sit bones feel like they're going towards the heel. So right sit bone to the right heel, left sit bone to the left heel, and then your chest bone feels like it's going to drop down towards the floor. Ah. So if you haven't got a blanket or a towel, you can always put your hands in front of you and rest your forehead on your hands. Now you're going to come up onto your hands and knees, because we're going to finish with another creaking of my knees this morning. We're going to come up and work on the multifidus, which is in your lumbar spine. The multifidus lumbar spine, that part of the multifidus we're going to work on today. You're going to come up onto your hands and knees. So have your hands directly underneath your armpits, that's what they're called, and your knees underneath your hip bones. So if you're too far in, you tend to curl under a little bit. So you want your knees not too far back, and once you're going to your push-up position. There, so you've got a 90-degree angle at your knees, and your feet to just relax on the floor. So think about where your shoulder blades are. Just allow your shoulder blades to kiss your spine again, but from the lower part of your shoulder blades, from maybe the mid to lower armpit area, as if they're just pulling gently and trying to kiss your spine. One arm goes out in front, and you take it off the floor, and you bring it back down, change hands. Now, all the time you're doing this, nothing's changed in your spine. Nothing's changed in your feet. You're not leaning over onto one side. And the head isn't dropping down towards the floor. So the head tends to drop, your shoulders will drop, and you're dropping the ribs here, and you'll get tight in the back here, and you'll find that you can't lift your arm up very high. It's very hard to lift your arm up when you're very tight up here in the shoulder. So creating length in your neck by letting the shoulder blades hug your spine as you let the arm float out in front of you. Floating arms. Okay, so let's see if we can do floating legs. I'm going to come forward a little bit so you can see my legs. So one leg goes back and it lifts, comes down, changing sides. Okay. So I think on one of the videos in here I've got a move where we're doing something like this, but there's a post on my back, or a broomstick. If you've got a witch's broomstick in your house, and let's face it, we've all needed a witch's broomstick in our house, it should be touching, if it's on your back, it should be touching the back of your neck, the heart line or the bra line, and the back of your pelvis where your sacrum is. So when you start to combine the leg and the arm together, so I'm doing right arm and left leg and lifting them off the floor, the tendency is to try and brace somewhere else in the body if the spine is lacking a little bit of stability somewhere along its line. So check that your head isn't dropping down. So your sternum stays up between your shoulder blades. Your chest bone is lifting up between your shoulder blades. Opposite arm and leg. And your front ribs are trying to meet your back ribs. They're not trying to meet the floor. So you keep this connection here with the front ribs to the back ribs. There's a lot of concentration and focus and precision going on here. Whoa, all that on a Sunday morning. So we're going to hold the next one. Right arm, left leg I'm on. Doesn't matter if you're on the other side. Going to hold and breathe. You're just gently noticing the floor with your hand that's resting there. Can you keep your fingers long and your thumb long? Is the foot down on the other leg, pressing the floor away with that knee. Come down, change sides. So I'm on left arm, right leg, lifting, staying in my center. So I'm trying not to push my weight over onto the left side of my pelvis. I'm trying not to push my pelvis over on the outside of my knee. Trying to keep it in the middle. And then come back into child's pose and rest. Only to rest the wrists. And then roll yourself up. Oh. And come and sit. Come and sit on your bums. And if you tend to have a little bit of a tucked under pelvis, so if your lower back's a bit flat, you tend to tighten in your gut a little bit when you sit and slouch a bit. You might want to sit on a rolled up blanket. Because if you sit on the front of that, it tends to tilt your pelvis forward. Lovely. But if you've already got quite an arched lower back, then you could sit in neutral position quite well on those right and left sit bones. So find your right and left sit bone. Right, those little bony bits right at the base of your pelvis. And think of your sit bones for a moment as if they're feet. And can you allow your sit bones to feel as if they're walking? One foot comes forward, the other one goes back. And then you swap sides. And like those little wind-up toys, if they've got little plastic feet, how they move like that. Is it Mr. Potato Head? It's got little feet like that. I've just got this image of a Mr. Potato Head with little plastic feet. If you wound him up and you walk like that. Mr. Potato Head feet in your sit bones. I don't know where that one came from. This image in my head of Mr. Potato Head. So can you do that? And you'll notice, can you notice what's happening? You're not holding onto your shoulders. You're not holding onto your head. Let your shoulders soften. And just allow that movement to do what it does with the rest of your body. Yeah, nice. And then put your hands on your hips, find your pelvis, find the bony pelvis. And carry on doing that with your Mr. Potato Head feet on your sit bones. And if you're sitting on a blanket, you might find you come off a little bit. That's okay. You can always move it and adjust it. So you'll notice that as one sit bone comes forward and the other one goes back, one side of your pelvis comes forward and the other side of your pelvis goes back. Yeah. And you'll notice that affects what's going on above your pelvis, into your lower back, into your lower ribs, going up further into the mid ribs, and going up into your shoulders. Amazing, amazing. If you let your arms relax as you do that, and let them just rest on the floor, and your hands will start to move as well, creating this little semicircle. And you can start to turn your head, and you'll notice as the arm goes behind you, think about that shoulder blade. What's it doing? Can you allow that shoulder blade to gently hug your spine as the arm goes behind you? Hug the spine with your mid to lower shoulder blade. So you're having that awareness of your mid back, your arms starting from your shoulder blades, from the middle of your back. And then come back to the middle, and you'll find that the sit bones tend to feel equal now. Magic stuff. So bring your hands across you, let your fingertips find your shoulders, let your elbows feel heavy, as if you've got weights coming out of your elbows. Now, if you find it tricky to bring your hands here, then bring your hands here into a prayer position so your thumbs are on your chest bone. So we're just going to go back to turning, but this time with your focus on your sit bones feeling the same. So your little potato, Mr. Potato feet, Mr. Potato Head feet, as if he's standing now. Both his feet are equal. And the purpose of having the hands here makes you feel, because if your shoulders are up here, your hands will be quite high. So you're kind of helping the shoulders stay down by noticing with your fingers what's happening, and feeling a heaviness in your elbows keeps the length here of your humerus so that it's not tightening up. You're not clenching in your shoulder socket. It's quite a nice way of feeling length in your arms. But if you can't do that and your hands are here, then you're feeling that rather than just moving the arms and become an arm moving exercise, it's more about your thoracic spine moving from your mid back, where all your ribs are. It's all about that. When you notice that shoulder blade helping pull you around, you're still getting movement here in your rib cage coming across to your opposite side of your pelvis. Your obliques helping you turn as well. And then can you let your head go in the opposite direction? So we're just coming up to finishing the session now. So just looking in the opposite direction, but without your shoulder kissing your chin. But notice if you do that, if the shoulder does come up and kiss your chin, or if you tend to turn your head a little bit, if you tend to tilt your head, can you do it without tilting your head? And you can just notice maybe if that part of your neck's a bit tighter than the other side, or if one shoulder tends to do that, is it tighter than the other side? You tend to hug forward more one shoulder. Can you notice one shoulder blade pulling back more than the other? Does it kiss one side of your spine more than the other? Can you notice how your shoulder blades respond? Lovely. And then come back to the middle and let your arms come out here, as if you're just like, well, it wasn't me. And then bring them in and open them up. And bring them in and open them up. Now, as you open them up, let the chest bone lift towards the ceiling, as if your heart's lifting towards the ceiling. Bring the hands back in, as if the heart and the chest bone are going back between your shoulder blades. And then lift again, lift the heart and the chest bone so your shoulder blades hug your spine. Bring the hands in and your heart and your chest bone go back as if they're going through your shoulder blades, because your shoulder blades are like doors, they've just opened. And now your shoulder blades are closing, your heart and your chest bone have to lift. And as your shoulder blades open like doors, your heart and your chest bone go through them. So you're getting this little lifting of the heart and then going back with the heart. Lifting the heart and coming back with the heart. And if you find it hard with the hands with this, the hands can just rest here on your legs, on your knees, and you're just focusing here on your chest bone and your heart lifting and then going back. And if you've done any kind of yoga or Pilates before, or not really anything like that, any kind of fitness program, you'll notice that what we're doing here is a cat stretch, like we do on our hands and knees, but we're doing it in a seated position. So if you spend a lot of time at your desk or at a screen, or even doing crafts like knitting, sewing, crocheting, drawing, painting, spend a lot of time in this position. It's quite nice to every now and then stop or do this as you're working, if that's possible, to get your spine out of that stuck, rounded position, so it doesn't become so tight and clenched here in the gut or in your sternum. So you get some movement in these ribs to open up the lungs and let your shoulder blades move over your ribs. It's such a nice, easy, simple movement. And find what's the middle between those two. You can find the middle once you've done a few of going into the tightness and out of the tightness. Lovely. Thank you for joining me today. Hope that was good fun for you. Works on your back. Hope you feel more open, and it will be saved so you can watch it whenever you like. Love you loads. We'll put a link on the Facebook group as well, and the Facebook page. So have a great day. And if you haven't had your breakfast yet, off you go. And I'll put the kettle on. Take care. See you next Sunday.